Hello, this is Troy and Victor here with Enzyme Essence. We're going to talk a little bit about enzymes today, but in a very different light, so to speak, and that deals with how enzymes affect time or our perception of time. So one of the things that I think almost everybody's experienced in life is there are moments in life that, and it's predominantly, from my experience, right before an accident or something very, very profound is about to happen, right? That's going to impact your life, so that the enzymes that are in your body, right, they slow things down, right? So there's a connection between time and enzymes. So the enzymes, it's almost like it's in slow-mo, right? Like picture by picture, because you can see it coming, and you're like, right? You're like, but you can't. But your mind, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Just slows it down so that it gives you time, right? The enzymes are saying, hey, there's something about to happen. You need to prepare for it. So it slows it down, and then you can kind of, like an example of that, living in Minnesota here, the icy roads in the wintertime. So I'm driving along, somebody in front of me is driving 30, and I'm thinking, wow, this is going to take me forever. So I go around the outside and speed up a little bit, and then all suddenly the car's going sideways, and that other car goes by, and then I see the ditch coming. I'm like, I'm going in, right? There's no doubt I'm going in, but everything just slowed down. It was so peaceful and so, there was no fear. It was just like, I reached down, I go, oh, I better make sure my seatbelt, right? I just check, seatbelt's locked, and just, it was like I was totally prepared for whatever was going to come, and it was just, and the truck just leaped off the side of the road and then landed, flat down in the ditch down there. But it was just amazing. So many things like that in life. I think that's one example that at least from my perspective, that enzymes have a relationship to that, because they want to give you the opportunity to slow things down, right, and to react, give you time to do something that you're supposed to do before that happens.
And then they also accelerate through a little adrenaline rush, so that you make appropriate responses orchestrated by these enzymes, so that you do take that steps that calls for immediate action. But what is interesting is if you take a look at, in terms of the way time is experienced by a happy person and a sad depressed person. A sad depressed person, usually in a 12-hour period of time of wakefulness, they'll experience probably like 48 hours of basically, when is this going to be over? When am I going to go to sleep? And all you think is about when am I going to eat? When am I going to go to sleep? Just all kind of little escape situations. But you're feeling the time. It's so slow.
Right.
Now, if you are in love, you're happy, you're energized. Wow, the time, where did it go? Like myself, during the last 40 years, I said, where did the time go? That's why we need to find ways to create time expansion. In other words, it's called life extension, and there is no better life extension than an enzymatic nutrition and enzymatic intake support, because all the research indicates the stronger is your enzymatic reserves, and the less you eat, and if you eat highest quality of food, the longer you will live, as being expressed by studies in National Geographic in I believe January 1973. The whole issue was devoted to longevity. And these people were on a high marginal cooking, because in the high mountains, these were all mountain people in Ecuador, Vilcabamba, up in the Himalayan Hunza land, up in Georgia, all mountains. And they have little fire available, because the higher you go up in elevation, as you know, as you climb the mountains, all of a sudden, all the forests start disappearing, So these were extremely high elevation, and so they had to eat most of their food raw, sun-cooked, and all that kind of stuff. But they're noted for longevity. At 120, they're still interested in romance, riding horses, dancing. And what was interesting in some of the photos, you saw their children or grandchildren. They had triple chins, and they were exporting their, you might say, from the Himalayas, the Hunza's apricots, exchanging it for Twinkies, and the roadways to tourism. These guys had bellies. And I look at slim, attractive, vital, happy-looking faces. These guys looked solemn over there. difference between enzymatic and underfeeding, because we're all overfeeding ourselves. We're turning into a garbage can, and that slows you down. The more mass you have, the slower you move. You know, the bigger and the fatter, you're not going to be doing the track or doing the long runs. So the whole idea is have enough mass to be for your optimal level of performance. Some person will have lots of muscular mass, but now we're seeing more and more the top athletes, they're all beefing themselves up by utilizing enzymes, not only extra digestion optimal, especially our products, and we'll discuss that later, how it enhances absorption of especially your amino acids and essential proteins, as well as also how it recovery time is cut down radically because of taking enzymes. So basically, if you want to be a happy camper, just start utilizing enzymes, and time will go by quickly because you will be creative. You will be using time effectively. Whereas if you're enzymeless, then that light that I talked about in Kirlian photography or infrared photography is just diminished, and your sense of time becomes very slow and very boring. It's when you experience the stress of time is when you're bored, and that means your brain is not active, because if you're bored, it's a good indication that you are not connecting with your spiritual side, you are not connecting with your energy. There's just no energy to utilize your brain. And when you are very enzymatically alive, then everything holds potential, and time you just don't have enough time. I mean, you and I mean, just think about it, all the creative projects. I mean, we got projects lined up for the next 100 years, and who knows, we might even live the next 100 years or 200. I'm really thinking about, you know, my lifespan should be around 500. I mean, that's what I'm going to need to really fulfill my passions and dharma. And it's just beautiful. Enzymatic nutrition and optimizing that nutrition makes such a difference in the way you experience time.
Absolutely. I think about it was just when you were talking about the athletes and the flow of energy, like when you get on those really expensive scales, right? It's impedance based, so it's sending an electrical current up through your body and down through the other leg, right, and measuring the resistance. So
yes,
it's the more fat that you have on your body, that's just an inhibitor, right?
Totally.
The electricity's got to try to push through that to get.
And also, it's more than electricity, but also it interferes with oxygen transport. And every metabolic reaction is oxygen dependent because it causes red blood cells to clump together, and they just don't travel well into the muscular extremities to do a work.
Yeah. So again, going back to the flow of energy, that you want to be efficient, effective. I mean, we're a protein-based organism, so if we can assimilate our proteins, utilize those, kind of a lean, mean fighting machine attitude. And then the other thing I thought about was you're talking about living 500 years. I'm like, well, that's the whole. I've always said that in regards to the time. We're, you know, that telomerase, right, or telomerase. I mean, is getting more press and more, you know, more talk about that, because if that's the enzyme that controls the length of your life.
And so, that is influenced by all the enzymatic nutrients you take in and the minerals. The two most important components for telomerase in terms of increasing the branches and longevity is the full spectrum of mineral. The DNA quality also escalates into eugenics instead of degenerating, and there is many different levels at which your DNA can exist, and there's the optimal that exists in the subtle energy fields. Dr. Chopra and many of the other physicians in the quantum physics, they talk about that it's unaffected by radiation or anything. That information continues to exist, and it either downscales, adapting to the toxemia and also malnutrition, or it upscales where you have detoxified your body and getting all the optimal nutrition. You're getting stronger genetic makeup to handle this toxic environment that we are immersed in.
Yep. So there's great promise. I mean, from all aspects. But I mean, again, going back to the enzymes and time. I mean, that whether it's, you know, slowing things down or speeding things up to react, but then also, you know, the length and quality of your life is all based on enzymes.
Totally. Life is a symphony of enzymatic orchestration, and you have trillions and trillions enzymes are involved in facilitating the symphony of life, which is basically just electromagnetic fields like comets and galaxies and universes, except it's on a microscopic level. That's your body. With empty space, if you think in terms of light years and space between different sun systems or stars, well, we got the same situation on a micro level within our body. We're basically empty space. If you reduced all the you might say the atoms, which is collecting the, if you could possibly, the atoms and compress it all, you'd be just a tiny little dot, speck, because between our nucleus and electron spinning, I mean, there's 99% empty space, and we're just made of empty space and energy fields.
Fascinating.
Totally.